it actually saddens me to say that the way that they've handled it has created tremendous distrust of government agencies like the CDC, NIH, and it's going to take a long time to build that trust again.
It is my distinct privilege to be here today with the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, world-renowned neurosurgeon, author, and the founder of the Cornerstone Institute, Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Now, you are both a distinguished neurosurgeon. You, of course, have had an impressive career in the field of policy. You still work in the field of political science. You know those two worlds of medicine and policy very, very well. So, speaking as a medical professional and as someone that still today is working in public policy, what is your assessment of the way that the Biden administration has handled the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, it actually saddens me to say that the way that they've handled it has created tremendous distrust of government agencies like the CDC, NIH, and it's going to take a long time to build that trust again. And that presents a real danger for our society because, you know, another pandemic may come along or some other real serious issue, and if people don't trust what's being told them, I think that could be very detrimental. So I hope maybe that there has been some learning through all this. You know, you can't mix science and medicine with politics. And you have to do things that actually make sense. You know, for instance, we have known that the vaccine has some issues. The complication rates are much higher than vaccines in the past. If you look at the VAERS data, the Vaccine Adverse Reaction Reporting System, but we don't talk about that. The risk of the COVID itself for healthy children is almost zero. And yet we're saying, let's give them the vaccine anyway, even though we know that there may be some long-term complications, and short-term from the COVID, there's almost no risk. It makes absolutely no scientific sense whatsoever. The fact that we won't recognize natural immunity. We've known about natural immunity for hundreds of years, and it's been very effective, and we used it effectively. And now, all of a sudden, natural immunity, what's that? You know, we're firing doctors and nurses who were on the front lines, who had COVID, who have antibodies, who have natural immunity, and we're saying it doesn't count anymore all of a sudden, even though it's better immunity than anything which you get from the vaccine. And there's only one reason I can think of that would be the case, and that is if you recognize natural immunity, then it puts a big hole in your argument that everybody has to have the vaccine.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on another pressing issue that we're seeing a lot in the news recently. Mm-hmm. So, of course, as a renowned neurosurgeon, you have that medical background, and increasingly we're seeing this trend of biological men competing in women's sports.
Yes.
We've seen this recently with college swimmer Leah Thomas. What are your thoughts on this? Can a man competing in women's sports ever be fair?
No, it's not fair at all because men and women have different physical structures. You know, in swimming, for instance, men have bigger hands, which means when they're swimming and they make that cuff and they swing, they're going to have an advantage. Their pelvic structure is different. You know, women's pelvic structure it's made for delivery and men for running. Or, you know, swimming in this particular case. You know, there are a lot of physiological things that are not going to be reversed by hormone treatment. And it's totally ridiculous. Now, what we should do, you know, I'm not saying that we should just forget about the transgenders, but why not let them have a transgender league and compete against people of this? It's totally unfair to women to do this to them. Completely unfair.
coming to breaking news, something that's happening right now. I would love to get your thoughts on President Joe Biden's recent announcement that he is appointing to the Supreme Court Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Right.
What are your thoughts on her? And also, what are your thoughts on President Joe Biden's earlier announcement that he would only consider a black woman for this role?
Well, I'm very disappointed. When we start making the criteria for public positions something that people have no control over. They have no control over their race. and yet that becomes the criteria. It goes against all the work, the blood that's been shed by people who are trying to achieve equality, who are advocating, people like Dr. Martin Luther King, that we would judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. It's also unfair to the candidate because people will assume that she got the position because of her color and not because of her qualifications. That may not be the case, but that will be a natural assumption. I can remember in my own case when I was a pediatric neurosurgeon early in my career, people didn't really know who I was. And, I could see some of them would come and say, I'm not letting the affirmative action operate on my brain. Now, later on, when I became very well known, everybody wanted me. But, people do make that assumption. And you can't really blame them. And, we've made so much progress that there really is no need, because the fact of the matter is there are so many qualified black women, Hispanic women, all kinds of people in our society, and the natural process is going to land them in positions. You don't have to do something that violates the whole concept of fairness and equality.
Dr. Carson, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
It's a privilege and an honor.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.